So LeBron James, who is never going to go to college and is the exception to every rule, has come out vociferously demanding that college athletes are paid for their name and likeness. And of course, he found a friendly ear in Gavin Newsom, who's the governor of the state of California, one of which I am a tax-paying citizen of. I grew up here. And today dropped the newest version of The Shop, right, which is the barbershop, which LeBron says they invented barbershop discussion, okay, which he didn't, and he's not able to trademark. And it's not real barbershop discussion if there's no counter to it. It's just a bunch of guys nodding, going, oh, yeah, yep. Sounds just like any barbershop debate that there has ever been. But here's the thing, and I understand that many of you think that the college student athletes somehow, as Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, said, don't get anything for playing in college. Okay? There's a word that rhymes with full that ends with something that rhymes with hit, right? It's complete B. And the idea that the governor of California would utter this mistruth, flat out lie, the whole thing is you should all be embarrassed. Now, you might not like the deal, which continues to improve, for the high school student athlete to play for free in college. Okay? But it's like we've completely forgotten that Felicity Huffman, though she's only going to jail for like a week and a half, is going to jail because she paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for what all of us, and I'm saying us as a college student athlete, got for free, which is entrance into a university. The idea that you get nothing. If you want to say, hey, I don't think it's enough, I would argue with you, and I would say it keeps getting better, and the more we give, the more entitlement you create. That there, by my estimation, we have an uneven balance where athletes get everything, get treated so fondly, so kindly that they we're not preparing them for real life. Real life is hard. It's a job. It is a job. If you consider that they can't be fired, there's a limit on how many hours per week they can do that job. They actually want to do it. They get championed for it. And by the way, overcompensated for it. But the idea of not getting anything, I challenge you to ask yourself honestly, how valuable is a college, not just degree, but everything else? What you don't realize is everything you're going to do in your professional life, I know this is going to draw upon college. Well, here's another lie. Yeah, they make billions of dollars off these kids. Yes, if you want to factor in gross revenue from TV deals that are 20 years combining 10 to 14 universities, sure, that's billions of dollars. But it's not over 20 years. It's one student athlete who doesn't really have value. I bring this up all the time. The basketball player actually has the least value in comparison to the football player because the basketball doesn't make much money for a university. It doesn't. It just doesn't. Go look at the football makes money. And basketball players who aren't really that valuable but think they are and have a loud voice like LeBron James, they only have to stay there if they want right now for 6 months. And they don't even have to go. They can go to the G League. And if their name and likeness, aside from the university, was worth anything, then why don't they go to the G League and get a shoe deal and get a car deal and be a spokesman for something? The answer is that's a free market. There are no limitations in the G League in what deals you can negotiate outside of your uniform. You got to wear the uniform that's sponsored by Gatorade and all the teams have a sponsor thing. That you can't change. But everything else, you can be a spokesman for whatever you want. Why don't any of them do it? Because the value is in the brand of college athletics and the school that they go to. And even if you want this idea that you don't get anything, yes, you do. You may not get enough for you. You may not get what you think you're worth. But the truth is, getting into college has a value. While you're there, the support you get, academic and sports support, as well as mental health, regular health, whatever you want, it's all taken care of. Food, clothing, dorms, everything, all taken care of. And then when you're done, what do you do? You call on your college experience to get a job, to have friends, all your relationships, and you don't have college debt, which is at an all-time high. Colleges are harder to get into than they've ever been. They're more expensive than they've ever been. And yet the student athlete experiences none of this. Do you know what we say? Do you know what all of us say as former athletes? When we go back to our old school, and we go back and we pop into the equipment room and we get some gear, we get some new shoes, get some sweats, get some swag, and then we go to the football game, we get free seats. Then we go to the basketball gym, we get some shots up. You know what we call it? On scholarship. It's a running joke, but you actually are on scholarship for life. Do you guys remember Perry Ellis played at Kansas? Felt like he played forever because he was going bald. He played 4 years. He's out of Wichita, Kansas. He's back at Kansas getting his degree, able to coach. Why? Because the NCAA has mandated that now you can go back anytime and even get an advanced degree and become a coach. You're actually not undercompensated, you're overcompensated. But if that's not enough for you, getting into a school which parents are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars under the table to try and get their kids into, if that's not enough, that's an argument. But saying they don't get anything, as the governor of California, who the Cal Bears, Cal Athletics, okay, was so badly in debt that the chancellor had to grant them $40 million in bailouts over 2 years and still is doing so because they're not actually making money. Because we're taking gross revenue and making it into net revenue, which it is not. So I'm not for the entitlement of athletes. I do think there's unintended consequences, including taxing college athletics, which we haven't discussed. And if this is the beginning of the end of college athletics, remember, today was the day and LeBron is responsible. All right, we've been getting into it all day on Twitter on the name and likeness thing, right? Yes. But you realize this is just pay for play, right? It has nothing to do with name and likeness.
Possibly, but I also, this is my biggest contention with a lot of this, okay, is that I think that there are valid points to be made on your side and on my side, but I think that we are overestimating the reach that this is going to have. I think that people assume that every player in Division I in California is going to get broke off, when in reality it's probably like 5 players on football and 2 on basketball, and that's probably it. Like,
Agreed.
There's just not a market, in my opinion,
right, for
an offensive lineman like myself at Oregon to make any more than maybe like $1,000 a year, that I would have not made otherwise. Like, I think we're
right. So let me kind of flesh this out for you. A couple things, okay? let me flesh you out the downside to doing it. You become a professional athlete if you do that. You're right. We do. You're getting paid for an appearance. You're a professional, correct?
Sure.
Okay. So what opens up the possibility of all of the benefits you receive being taxed, or all the benefits that are covered being taxed. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Schools, athletic departments operate in a tax-free environment. They take in money for tickets and donations, and they don't get taxed on that money. Okay?
Correct.
So if the same state legislature, because this is, by the way, state of California, it's like weed. They legalized it so they can tax it. That's what they do. They legalize it so they can tax it. Like, oh, yeah, legal. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing. It's also right to tax it. You tax it, and look, it's a disappearing act with college scholarships. Like, these schools are not making the money that people think that they're making. They're just not. State of California especially, they're on a kind of bare bones budget from the state. They have to cover their scholarships. They have to cover all this other stuff from donations. And, oh yeah, by the way, you're not only potentially taking money away on taxes, but even if that doesn't happen, think about how they operate and how they make money. You have Joe's Ford dealership, right? Has to pay, a couple $100,000, $500,000 to be the official Ford of Oregon where you played football. Why would you pay that if you can pay the quarterback $5,000 a year? And while you say, well, that's the right thing to do, it hurts the revenue for the football program, which ultimately hurts the athletes as well. Like, I don't think people understand all of the unintended consequences of simply breaking off money, which is pay for play. They don't really have any value.
But having your name be like the official Ford sponsor of Oregon, let's say, right? You're still going to want that to bring in business. Like having a quarterback show up for one day of signing autographs is probably not going to bring you the business that having your name be the official sponsor of Oregon football is for 5 years. Like
I don't think either. Honestly, I don't think either of them bring a ton of value. But I would disagree with you with the coaches show up. They do the coaches shows. We know that has value. And why would I pay the big when I can pay 4 or 5 guys to come down and sign autographs and shake hands and kiss babies? Like, look, it's really just pay for play. That's all it is, which is not what this is about. And what drives me crazy is this. You don't get anything from it. Like, yeah, you do. You get into a school you probably couldn't have got into. You get completely taken care of while you're there. And when you're done, you're part of that football family. When you ever need anything, part of that university family, you ever need anything, that's who you call upon, right?
I think the issue becomes that in every other walk of life, you're allowed to just market yourselves and you're allowed to go make money on your own.
That's called being a professional.
No, it's not. You can do that in college if you have a unique skill or talent.
Who does that? Please name all these imaginary people who make money off their name and likeness. Like Jay Billis does this thing, which is completely disingenuous. Jay Billis goes, well, the music student who's on scholarship.
That's not
right. The music student, he can go and play at Jam. Okay, for $500. Meanwhile, the music student doesn't have all the benefits of the athlete, and none of them are making huge money off their name and likeness. And your point is valid. It's only going to be a couple of kids. And is that worth bringing down a system that 99% of the
I don't think it'll bring down a system, but my
I think potentially
my point remains the same. Is that it's the principle of allowing them to do it is why this should be done, rather than like comparing it to like a music. Like the principle is that they're athletes, they're the schools. Yes, they are receiving a benefit of a scholarship and everything that you mentioned on Twitter because they have a value to that school. They have a value because of their talents. And these are the things that they have gotten because of their talents. But they also have a value to make the school a lot of money. And in that process, they don't see any extra benefits, monetary benefits, because of that. I also have a problem
They do see like the idea they don't see benefits. Dude, your kids aren't old enough. Do you know how much money they get, how much money is spent on them? Like this, they don't see benefits is bull.
I know how much the scholarships cost a year.
It's not just everybody just factors in the scholarships. It's getting into the school has a value. It's the training, the coaching, the training table, the dorms, the tutors, the clothing. All of that is, and the recruiting, the marketing of the players that you're talking about are all marketed so that when they're done playing, I can go like, oh, I remember you. You played at Oregon. Oh, yeah, cool. Yes. It helps you in every part of your life. And this idea it has no. So why are we arguing over $1,000 to show up at a Ford place?
Because they should be allowed, because that's what everyone else can do. Like, I don't understand why $1,000 to show up at a Ford place ends up being some giant thing where people are making millions of dollars. Like if they want to pay Geoff Schwartz while I was in college, like I was on a billboard for 2 years. I was at stuff where I wasn't allowed to get paid. Obviously, like I should be getting paid $1,000 for that. I don't see a problem in that happening, and I don't think it's going to bring down the entire system because I get $1,000 for going to sign autographs.
Look, I'll just say this last thing, okay? People are championing Ed O'Bannon, who I grew up watching play at Artesia. He was bought and sold. He was bought and sold 10 times over to go to high school at Artesia. He was at Bourbon Day first, then went to Artesia, then he's had everything. He had everything taken care of. He went to UNLV. They go on probation. He never goes to UNLV. He goes to UCLA in his 5th year because he hurt his knee on an ACL. He wins a national championship, a player of the year. He went to the NBA. And like all of this stuff. And he's like, well, they used my name and likeness for a video game, which, by the way, wasn't selling. That's why they discontinued it. And like he's being championed. Like, what are we talking about? Ed O'Bannon only got drafted in the NBA because of his success in college.
I feel like one thing that we're missing in this whole thing, this is a little different subject. This is what I'm actually more passionate about, I think, than this whole idea of just like, is that I think, and they've done a better job of this, but the disparity at times in some of these college kids on scholarships in big cities with like the rent they have to pay compared to like other, like for example, my brother went to Cal. He lived in Oakland.
Right.
His scholarship check barely covered just rent, and luckily my family was able to give him money to go like live a life in college. $300, $400 a month.
Right.
That to me is even a bigger problem than this whole likeness thing. Like we need to find a way for players that live in big cities to like actually have money to spend and not spend all their money on rent and just have a college life. And maybe if we fix that first, there wouldn't be a need for players to have. I think it's more just players want to have some spending money while they're in college. Often they can't have that.
They do now with the cost of attendance that most get. Cal. So here's what I know Cal athletes get now. I don't know if your brother got this. Okay, as of 2 years ago, a friend of mine played basketball at Cal. They lived in kind of basketball apartments all together.
Yeah.
It was $1,000 a month. They got $1,600 a month. So they had $600 extra a month and to spend on whatever they wanted. And, they had training table and all the food that they could eat or whatever. Like,
yeah, Mitch was getting like $1,000 a month and his rent was $950.
Yeah, well, you got it. Or you can live on campus, like these are options. I mean, like, look, it's hard in the big cities. It does affect the Pac-12 schools. You do technically get more money, depending on average cost of living. But the Cal thing is hard. And, oh, yeah, by the way, like Cal football, budget-wise, is an abject disaster because their stadium is literally built on a fault line, right? And it's
I know.
And they have a terrible economic deal, which is why they're in the red every year. So it's like, yeah, you want to give it, but all this money that everybody thinks Cal's making, like, it's not actually true. They're actually losing money every year on football.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. But also, look, okay, Cal's a great example. So if you have this new rule in place, not a single booster is going to be paying an athlete at Cal to go to school. It's not. I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal as we think it is. No one at Cal, is that an unfair recruiting advantage over Stanford? Maybe, but I think there's already built-in unfair recruiting advantages to Stanford anyways. Like I don't think it's that big of a deal.
You know why? Because if you go to Stanford, the Stanford degree, much like a Cal degree, you'll never have to work for a legit job in your life.
Correct. That's true.
Which is the value of going to college. Which is why why professional athletes send their kids to places like Stanford, Notre Dame.
100% agree. Stanford. If I had one choice to go to any school in the country, it would have been Stanford.
Yep. Hey, dude. Really, really good stuff. Appreciate the Discord, even if it's a disagreement. And we'll talk soon.
All right, talk to you later, bud.
Geoff Schwartz here. I'm on Sirius XM, and of course, read his work in SB Nation. Get you Isaac Lowe. Hi, I'm Doug Gottlieb from Fox Sports Radio, and you need to subscribe to the Fox Sports Radio YouTube channel, where you can hear and see me. Why not? Plus, everybody else who's awesome here in Fox Sports Radio.